Greetings, my people. Greetings, my people. Greetings, my people. Today is July. Today is July. Today is Sunday, July 21st, 2024, 4:40 p.m. And I titled this one, That German Lady Woman Exposed How Much You Love White Correction. And I'm not going to be long on this one. But I do want to speak to this because what I'm seeing is much like when I spoke about Ryan Garcia, right? Um, Either we have two options. We don't identify, or we don't really, as a whole, don't really understand when others really speak their true heart and their true intentions, or we love when they speak their true intentions. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Because for this German woman to come out and say the things that she said about Black women and the amount of Black females that get behind her and say, she's right, she's right, she's right. And I'm not going to stop telling y'all about the social engineering. I'm not going to stop telling y'all about how y'all are psychologically engineered and maneuvered to be each other's worst enemy, right? So you have to really understand to understand, if that makes sense. But what I mean by you just love white correction. So the fact that, let's just say, if a Black female would have came out and said those exact same words, by the females, she would have been a pick me. She would have been a pick me that don't speak for all of them, that don't do this. It would have came down because you are programmed to hate truth that comes from your own. But anytime your white mommy or your white zaddy say things, most will fall in line because that correction seemed familiar, right? That's the slave monster correcting his property and telling you how inadequate you are, right? This is a whole. This comes from a long line of trauma, and it's crazy. And the fact that a lot of females, Black females, didn't even understand that she was insulting you too. Because the fact that she got up there, not only did she insult, much like Ryan Garcia, insult Black women. Sometimes you think you are the difference maker, right? You think you're the good one that they're not talking about. And just because, let me tell you something, they don't see good ones. When they speak like that, they speak matter of factly. We somehow are the only ones that don't see that don't see them. We the only ones that are always looking for the good ones. We're the only ones that saying, I know, much like y'all saying, I know Ryan Garcia's heart. I know he really didn't mean that. And for her to come out and say basically that she had to civilize him and show him any type of civilization, it's BS. It's total BS for her to be able to come out and say the things and then you wholeheartedly. There's a difference of when they're making a statement on how we're lapping it up for them. Much like that Mexican dude came in my comments a couple of videos ago and talked about how it amazes him how we lap it up for them and won't stick together. See, because you have to add context to this. You have to add that. But it's a total different thing when they come out and say, I'm better. I'm a better suit. I civilized your people. I had to come show what you're incapable of showing. You're incapable of being, what's the word? Not hospitable. You're incapable of being loving and nurturing, right? And let me show you the mind screw that I'm not here to talk about the slave trade. I'm not here to debate. I don't do this debate because nobody ever wins in that situation because egos are present. But we know for a shadow of a doubt how they used how white women used our black women. How they used our black women for maids, servants, to breastfeed their children, to do all of these things, to show them. See, what's crazy about it is most people, like let's say the Moors, they'll talk about how they civilized them, taught them how to bathe, right? Here's another, let me see if I can find this book. Here's a book that you should get. It's called Dirt by Terrence McLaughlin. And this, it talks about their cleanly habits. Now, tell this to the German chick. It talks about their cleanly habits, which is why you'll hear people like Mila Kunis, what's his name? Ashton Kutcher, also Serena Williams' husband, say that she taught him how to use a washcloth, right? The whole time she's mind screwing you saying, I loved on your men. I was able to love on your men in ways that you can't. Which is why I say y'all have to understand how we have been mind screwed. Right? How we have been mind screwed. How we have been de-evolutionized, can I say? So to the fact that we look like we can't perform certain tasks. All the while, we have always been the ones to bring civilization. We have always been the ones to bring class to things. Right? And for you weak dudes that just, because see, this is what it is. In loving this white correction, most of these weak, tender dick dudes, they just want to see anybody correct black women and put them in their place. Because we flirt with a word that called healing. We say heal, but really that is something that's continual. It's a process. It's not a destination. You don't get to heal stage to be healed, and then in Scientology talk, you're clear. Doesn't work like that. Because even though to me it's synonymous with addiction, you're one trigger away from being right back to where you thought you graduated from. Right? So instead of broken black males understanding how they have been engineered, and broken black females understand how they have been engineered and pit against each other. How they use images like a sexy red. How they use images of like people like NBA Youngboy, Kodak Black. All the lower level thinking people as representations of us. Because these are still minstrel show images, right? Because the minstrel show is white people's interpretation of you. So this is still a minstrel show because these are the Western handlers' interpretation of how black people behave. And before I get out of here, there's a video. I don't know if it's still up, but it was by this dude. I think his name was D. Bradley. And it's a couple of years old. You can check it out. See if it's still on YouTube. It's called Confessions of a BET Producer, I think. And I think his name was D. Bradley. And he talks about how he played an important role in creating certain shows. I think one of them was like Spring Bling. I think he said he was influential in creating the image of Eve, right? The rapper Eve. And he said he knew without a shadow of a doubt that these Westerners would sit around every day like clockwork and watch, I think he said, Rap City. And this is where they would get their interpretation. He said he would hear all the time they talk about how black people just wasn't intelligent. And so instead of us understanding how we have gotten in this situation, we just sit up here and talk about the situation that we're in. Because much like everybody, much like the pedophile, much like the woman abuser, much like the scheming, conniving woman, everything has a backstory. Everybody and everything has a backstory. But for the simple fact for us to sit up here and champion for this is ridiculousness. She's not correct. Because they don't understand what it's like to wear this skin. They don't understand what it's like to be hunted by race soldiers that wear badges, if you get what I'm saying. They don't have to give that talk to their children that's just going out in the streets. They don't understand stuff like what was his name? I think his name was Michael Dunn. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. That killed that young man Jordan Davis, and that's I think she's in politics now. Lucy McBath's son. That was simply playing his music. He was with his friends, and they were at a gas station, and his white entitlement, his white privilege, the sight of young black men to automatically remember what I just said about the minstrel show, how they see you in their minds. He instantly labeled them as thugs, though they had no records. They were good young men. And his entitlement, much like her and her entitlement to speak on black people and black women in particular in that way, the haughtiness, the audacity. He felt it was his duty that they were bothering him. He commanded them to turn down their music. And one of the young men complied. And young Jordan was like, man, we ain't staying here, turn your music up. And he felt so entitled and privileged that he opened fire. Right? So when y'all championing for this and saying she's right, that's just y'all loving when a Western man comes out, a Western German man comes out. You know what I'm saying? Western is just another way of saying white. Comes out and speak like that. And we're supposed to just take their correction. Because that's what it is. You're psychologically programmed that when they spit their correction, you take it. Much like if they speak what we perceive as truth, if it's white, it's all right. You got to overcome that. That's why I always say reading severely damages your ignorance. Reading severely damages your ignorance. Right? Once we really learn to love on each other, because we'll get behind, and I'm about to wrap it up, we'll get behind anybody. Look at the Cameron and Mace and Jay Prince and Shakur Stevenson situation. So much that Cameron was so in his emotions about Shakur Stevenson He sided with Teofimo Lopez and said, step up in a weight class so you can fight Teofimo Lopez and he can knock your head to wherever, he said. And guess who Teofimo Lopez sided with Ryan Garcia? His own. So when you're agreeing with her, you're agreeing against your own self-interest. You're agreeing with her that Black women are inadequate. You're agreeing with her that Black women can't love their men properly. Images are advertisements to the mind. So they have to give us the most weak, the most diabolical, the most destructive, the most toxic images on both sides, because that equals and make you non-threatening. Because you'll never see who the enemy are, because we're both playing this side. You don't get it? You don't get it that they continuously have us Jordan versus LeBron, Jordan versus LeBron, to the fact that people hate these two Black men just based off of how we feel, of who better. And you could never, ever, ever say who would be better in each era. But show me the moment we see them doing Tom Brady versus Joe Montana in this fashion, then that's equality. But they're not going to do it because they convinced your mind to accept white supremacy. So much now that when I'm looking at Team USA now, because it's all about, again, Jordan versus LeBron, that they're saying this Team USA would be better than that. Why do we have to play those games? Why do we have to play those games? Why do we have to constantly be pitted against each other? Like two pit bulls in a cage fighting. And when you fight, and what does the victor actually get? What's the satisfaction that Black males get when they're saying, go overseas? And I said I'm almost going to be done because I'm trying not to go too long, right? Go overseas. Now, let me show you this. Joe Jellybean Bryant just passed away, the father of great Kobe Bryant, right? Right? And we don't understand parent, father, son dynamics all the time, right? So whatever their differences was, okay. So this is why I said you must teach your children from the start. Just the truth. You don't have to be extreme, but just teach them the truth. From the cradle to the grave, right? So from what always have been said that they didn't approve of Kobe dating outside his race, right? They wanted him to marry a Black woman. Fair game, right? But where the waters got muddy was when he was brought up in Italy. And you're the only Black person that he always said, most of the time being the only Black kid on the basketball team, most of these things, right? So he always spoke to being outsider or being felt like an outsider, not really connected. So You go overseas, and this is where he finds connection. So when he comes back to the States, he still has that overseas, because they were young. He still has that in him. Now, I don't know how much race first Kobe had in him. He never spoke about that. But just listen to what I'm saying. He's had that overseas experience. He's just seeing people. I don't know what their dynamics they had of race first in their household. I don't know. But when you see overseas, evidently he just saw people. He saw people that could speak his language. He saw people that he could relate to. So that's what he correlated to his love. Now, whether he was right or wrong, that is for him. That is for him to decide. But he's not here no more to decide that, right? But what that have to do with what I'm talking about is that now we have tons of dudes that's championing to go overseas. And then when Kobe passes away, who gets all of that money? It's destruction of Black civilization over and over and over and over again. And we don't get it because we're always looking for outside validation. We have a group of dudes that call themselves passport bros. And notice in her message, that's what she was saying, fellas, don't be ashamed to travel. Because the more that they can get you to accept this overseas of they're not saying Kenya. They're not saying places like this. But what you have to do is be culturally sound, because you can't bring your Black Western American ways over there. Your non-tradition, you're doing what you want to do, your American way that we have been trained. And these people are culturally sound. There's a difference. There's a difference. But to hear the disgusting way that our people are agreeing with her, it's sheer madness. It just further speaks to what I talk about, the conditioning of how you don't even see when you're being played and insulted. What's so wrong with loving each other? We give so much more grace, right? We give so much more grace. I forget who it was. Correct me in the comments if you know the answer. But I don't know if it was Black China. I can't remember who it was that said if the Kardashians were Black, they would be called all kind of things. And you know how they came up. But the crazy part is, again, like I said, and that put in those two pit bulls, the female pit bull, the male pit bull. He called, and Willie Lynch, he called you a mare. But in putting these pit bulls in, and they feed you the most vicious things to make you want to tear each other throat out. I'm talking about, I've heard dudes talk about, man, y'all can't get mad at her because y'all mess around with 100, y'all effing 100 dudes. Look at how you think of your own. And through the engineering, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but why does it exist? That's the question. Why does it exist? Research the Tavistock Institute. Before you jump in my comments for the people that's gonna disagree with this, and hit sevens if y'all know what I'm talking about. Hit sevens if y'all feel what I'm saying. right? Research the Tavistock Institute. You have to understand how your mind was manipulated. It didn't just happen to chance. This stuff just didn't happen. Like I said, slow down, slow down. Let's just go back to the 60s because we're not even ready to deal like the 1800s, right? Let's just go to the 60s. Let's go to the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And I want you that's gonna watch this video, to imagine this. What was the state and the attitude of our people then? When our people were being faced and hit with water hoses, bit by police dogs, churches bombed with little girls in it. Where was the violence that they're trying to convince you that we are naturally then? In those respected, in those each one of those decades that I give you, where were the women that were twerking? Where were the women saying, I ain't got no nigga, and no nigga ain't got me? Where was that mentality? It hadn't been developed yet. See, they have to introduce your mind to something for you to pick it up. And the more you pick this up, is that we are inferior. Guess what you do? You endorse white supremacy. So that's all I wanted to say. If you get it and you like it, hit sevens. If you don't be in the comments stupid. If you're not willing to put the dedication in to read what I'm talking about, don't insult what I'm talking about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just bypass the video. But this is why we can't come up, because we're so busy trying to talk, or we're so busy trying to emotionally disagree. It ain't the fact that you disagree with me. But don't delight in the comfort of being insulted. That's all I'm saying. Peace.